Never wait until the power is already out to figure out you weren't ready for it. If you search something like, how do I actually prepare for an emergency without going full prepper? This video is exactly what you're looking for. No bunkers, no years of canned food, no tactical gear, just the real, practical stuff that actually matters when normal life stops working for a few days. Here's the thing nobody tells you. You don't need to prepare for the end of the world. You need to prepare for the world you already live in, just temporarily not working. That's it. That's the whole idea behind this video. And by the end, you'll know exactly what that means for your house, your family, and your wallet. So let's talk about what actually happens, how often it happens, and what you can do about it without turning your garage into a survival bunker. Let's start with the problem, because most people get this completely wrong. When people hear emergency preparedness, they picture two extremes. Either someone who's convinced nothing bad will ever happen to them, or someone with a bunker, a decade of freeze-dried food, and enough ammo to start a small war. Neither of those people is thinking about this correctly. Here's what's actually true. The US Energy Information Administration found that the average American electricity customer experienced about 5.5 hours of power interruptions in 2022. Now, that's an average, and averages hide a lot. In some places, outages last minutes. In others, they last weeks. When Hurricane Ian hit Florida in 2022, more than 2.6 million customers lost power, and some of them didn't get it back for over 2 weeks. And this isn't a one-time freak event. NEAA has tracked disasters in the US that caused at least $1 billion in damage, and between 1980 and 2024, there were 395 of them. In 2024 alone, there were 19. That's not apocalyptic talk. That's just documented history. So the real question isn't, will something ever happen? It's when something happens near you, even something small, how uncomfortable are the next 24 to 72 hours going to be for your household? That's the entire mindset shift this video is trying to give you. You're not preparing for civilization to collapse. You're preparing for a storm, a grid failure, a water main break, or a heat wave that knocks your normal routine off track for a few days. Now let's get into what actually breaks when this happens, because most people don't realize how connected everything in their house really is. Picture this. The power goes out tonight. At first, it's not a big deal. You light some candles, maybe laugh about it. But let's walk through what actually happens hour by hour, because this is where it gets real. In the first few hours, it's mostly an inconvenience. Lights are off, maybe the TV too. Not a huge deal yet. By hour 6, your phone battery is dropping and you start to notice you don't have a great way to charge it. Your refrigerator has been off for a while now too, and the food inside is slowly warming up. By hour 12, refrigeration becomes a real concern. Anything perishable is at risk. If it's summer, your house is getting hot and uncomfortable. If it's winter, it's getting cold, and that's actually more dangerous. By day 2, things most people never think about start to matter. Do you have enough drinking water in the house right now? Not water you could theoretically buy, but water that's actually sitting in your home? Can you cook anything without electricity? Is your phone dead? And if it is, how are you getting information or contacting anyone? By day 3, this stops being about gadgets and starts being about planning. Where would your family meet if you got separated? Does everyone know who to call? And does that person live somewhere with power? Do you know if there's a boil water advisory in your area? None of this requires a bunker. It requires 5 minutes of thinking ahead of time. And here's the part that really surprises people. It's not just the lights. FEMA's own guidance on power outages, lists, refrigeration, medical equipment, communication, heating and cooling, and even water safety is things that can be affected. A power outage isn't really about darkness. It's about every single system in your house that quietly depends on electricity without you ever noticing until it's gone. Think about how many things in your life assume the power grid, the internet, and your phone are always working. Your bank card, your GPS, your thermostat, your garage door. Even gas stations need electricity to pump fuel. None of that is dramatic until the one day it actually matters. And this changes depending on where you live, which is something a lot of preparedness content completely ignores. If you're in Florida or along the Gulf Coast, your biggest concern is probably hurricanes and extended power outages afterward. If you're in the Midwest, it might be tornadoes or an ice storm that knocks out power for days in freezing temperatures. If you're in California, wildfires can mean sudden evacuation orders with almost no warning. If you're somewhere with brutal winters, a blackout during a cold snap is a completely different and more dangerous situation than the same blackout during a mild week in spring. The point isn't that you need to prepare for every single type of disaster equally. It's that you should know what's actually likely where you live and build your plan around that, instead of copying a generic list that assumes everyone faces the same risks. So what does the government actually recommend? And is it as extreme as people think? Not even close. FEMA's baseline recommendation is to have at least several days of basic supplies on hand. Traditionally, that's been framed as 3 days, though more recent guidance leans towards several days because every disaster is different. This is not stockpile a year of food. This is have enough to get through a rough few days without needing to run to the store or wait for help. The CDC gets specific about one resource in particular, and it's the one most people underestimate: water. Their recommendation is at least 1 gallon of water per person, per day, for 3 days, and they suggest working toward 2 weeks if you can manage it. That gallon isn't just for drinking. It covers cooking and basic hygiene too. Most people have never actually checked how much drinking water is sitting in their house right now. Go check after this video. You might be surprised how little there is. Beyond water, the basic list looks like this: non-perishable food, a flashlight, batteries, a way to get emergency information like a radio, basic first aid supplies, any medications you or your family need, a phone charger or backup battery, copies of important documents, and anything specific to your household, like supplies for pets or infants. Here's what's actually reassuring about this list. Look at it again. Most of that is already in your house. You probably already own a flashlight. You probably already have some canned food. You might already have a battery pack for your phone. FEMA itself says that if you can't put together a dedicated emergency kit, just knowing where these things already are in your house is a huge step forward. This isn't about buying a bunch of new stuff. It's about organizing what you already have and filling in a few real gaps, especially water and a communication plan. Take a minute right now and actually think through your own house. Do you have a working flashlight? And do you know exactly where it is without searching for 10 minutes in the dark? Is there a first aid kit somewhere? And does it have anything more than a few band-aids in it? If someone in your house takes daily medication, is there ever a backup supply? Even a few extra days worth? Do you have a battery-powered or hand-crank radio? Or would you be completely relying on a phone that might be dead by day 2? These are small questions, but they're the ones that actually matter when the power is out at 11 at night and you're trying to find a light source in a house full of drawers you haven't opened in months. And since we're talking about having a reliable light source ready before you actually need it, there's one practical option worth knowing about. It's called the Sunim Solar Pack, and it includes a solar-powered lantern, a solar LED bulb, and 5 rechargeable LED candles designed specifically for power outages. If having a few independent light sources ready sounds useful for your emergency setup, I put a link in the first pinned comment below. Now, having the gear is only half the story, because this next part is where most people actually fall short. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is honestly the most important insight in the whole video. There was a national study looking at how prepared American households actually are, and it found something counterintuitive. People are much better at having stuff than having a plan. Around 65% of households met basic criteria for having supplies on hand. But when it came to actual plans, things like knowing where to meet if separated or having a communication strategy, only about 41% met that standard. Let that sink in for a second. More people own a flashlight than know what they'd actually do in an emergency. Buying things is easy. You click a button or grab something off a shelf. Making an actual plan takes 5 minutes of intentional thinking, and somehow that's the part almost everyone skips. So here's a challenge. Before you buy a single new item after watching this video, sit down with the people you live with and answer 3 questions. Where would we meet if we got separated and couldn't call each other? Who is our out-of-town contact that everyone will check in with? And where in this house is our emergency water, food, and flashlight actually located right now? If you can't answer those instantly, that's the gap to fix first, not another purchase. And FEMA's own national survey backs this up too. It found real differences in preparedness based on income and circumstances. Roughly 71% of households that weren't economically disadvantaged had some emergency supplies set aside, compared to about 58% among households that were. Plans followed a similar pattern, 59% versus 48%. This isn't about laziness or not caring. Preparedness takes money, storage space, and stable housing, and not everyone has equal access to those things. If you're working with less, that doesn't make you irresponsible. It just means you focus on the highest impact, lowest cost stuff first, and water plus a plan are exactly that. Now let's talk about the one piece of emergency gear that can actually turn dangerous if you're not careful, because this is a genuine safety issue and it doesn't get talked about enough. Portable generators. A lot of people buy one specifically to feel safer during an outage, and they can be genuinely useful. But here's the part that matters. The US Consumer Product Safety Commission says roughly 100 Americans die every year from carbon monoxide poisoning connected to portable generators, not from storms, not from the disaster itself, from the device people bought to protect themselves. The mistake is almost always the same. Someone runs a generator in a garage, even with the door open, or right next to a window, thinking that's enough ventilation. It's not. Carbon monoxide builds up fast, and you can't see it or smell it. Official guidance is clear on this. A portable generator should never run inside a home, garage, basement, crawl space, or shed. It needs to be outside, and current safety guidance says at least 20 feet away from your house, with the exhaust pointed away from windows and doors. Opening a garage door does not fix this. That's one of the most common and most dangerous myths out there. So if you own a generator or you're thinking about getting one, that distance rule is not optional. It's the difference between a helpful tool and a fatal mistake. One more honest point before we wrap up. There isn't strong research proving that a standard emergency kit guarantees anyone's safety in a disaster. That might sound like it undercuts everything we just talked about, but it actually doesn't. Preparedness was never about guaranteeing an outcome. It's about removing the obvious, avoidable problems, the dead phone, the warm food, the missing medication, so that if something serious does happen, you're not fighting 3 small problems on top of the real one. That's a realistic goal, and it's one you can actually reach without spending a fortune or changing your entire lifestyle. Let's bring this together, because by now you should have a completely different picture of what preparedness actually means. This was never about doomsday. It's about the fact that modern life runs on systems so reliable that we forget how much we depend on them until one of them stops. Electricity keeps your fridge cold, your phone charged, your internet running, your gas pump working, sometimes even your water flowing. When it goes out, even for a couple of days, all of that becomes visible at once. But being ready for that doesn't require becoming a different kind of person. It requires a few gallons of water actually sitting in your house, a few days of food you already probably own, a charged backup battery, your medications accounted for, and 5 minutes spent talking through a plan with the people you live with. And if you have a generator, it requires respecting the 20-foot rule every single time. None of this guarantees nothing bad will ever happen. No kit and no plan can promise that. What it does is remove the easy, avoidable problems, so that if something does happen, you're dealing with the actual emergency, not a house full of warm food, a dead phone, and no idea where anyone in your family is. You don't need to prepare for the end of the world. You just need to prepare for the normal world temporarily not working, and now you actually know how. If this kind of practical, no-nonsense information is useful to you, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.